Let's go. It looks like I am on screen. What's happening, everybody? I am Ross Mack. Let's have some little fun. Let me know where everybody's from. I'm personally from Chicago, so if y'all could tell me where you guys are from in the chat, that'd be helpful. Melanie, LA, Jersey, Maryland, Columbia, South Carolina, H Town. There we go. I see some Chicago in the building. I love it. I love it, man. This is awesome. Thank you guys for having me. While we are doing this, right? Kansas in the building, Phoenix, Arizona, PA. I went to school in Philly. I'll tell you guys a little bit about me, right? I am from the South Side of Chicago, and I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I was in the Wharton School, and I was a person that got on Wall Street and realized that my purpose was a little different. And so I effectively climbed off the corporate ladder and built my own. I am now an entrepreneur where I've dedicated my life to helping inspire and educate our community, especially when it comes to financial literacy. And it's an honor to be talking to you guys because you guys are in the creative space, and I myself am also in the creative space, right? Like I say, a person that used to work on Wall Street, now I have a media company where we partner with a ton of big media companies from, Yahoo Finance. I have a show on Yahoo Finance. I have a show on Revolt TV. I've worked with Complex, BET. I have a Netflix documentary called Get Smart with Money. And so these are a few things, right? But I think that when we talk to people in the arts, it is imperative that financial literacy is one of the more important things we discuss because at times when you're in the arts, right, your income is not as consistent as a person with a traditional 9 to 5, right? And oh, I forgot when we talk about arts, I also am a musician, so I know a little bit about everything. I was once the Wall Street rapper. But that being said, we're gonna get this thing going. And so, as just a quick exercise in the chat, right? Let me know what you guys plan to do when you graduate, right? What do you want to be when you're done with school? I want to get a sense of kind of what we're talking about. A reporter. There we go. I like that. Reporter, news producer. Okay, so you guys are some of the people that when I do things, I need to know you guys. My PR team needs to know you guys. News anchor, journalist, reporter. I love it. You guys are in the this is amazing. Filmmaker, journalist, designer. I love it. Filmmaker, designer, entertainment journalist, filmmaker. And so I think one of the things, we're going to understand is that none of this that I'm hearing is effectively the more traditional, right? And I want to go on notice, right, that nobody said when they grow up they want to be broke. Yet the reality is, right, there are a ton of people that end up having financial struggles, and that's largely because we as a collective don't talk about this. And so that's why I want to, help you guys truly understand what financial literacy is, right? The most important thing is it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And so when we look at some of our biggest people in the entertainment world, right? 80% of musicians report financial instability as their number one career stressor. So when you look at some of the people that we once known and idolized, seeing them have financial struggles should be a wake-up call, right? T-Pain once had over 40 million in the bank and he had to borrow money to get his kids Burger King, right? When we look at what I believe is arguably the greatest fighter of all time, you can argue it, but for sure of our generation, Floyd Mayweather, who's made over $1 billion, he's having financial issues, right? He just, facing charges for writing a bad check that bounced. He's suing, his business partners because he said they stole hundreds of millions of dollars from him. One of the greatest singers of all time, Whitney Houston, when she passed away, she had negative net worth of about 20 million. And so when we talk about this, I need you to understand it's not just entertainers, right? This applies to everybody, right? Financial literacy or lack thereof is an epidemic in our society, right? And when you look and you see that 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, nearly half of those that make over six figures, aka 100,000. But then when we say over half of Americans can't cover $1,000 emergency fund, right? Well, they can't cover $1,000 emergency with their savings. They got to borrow money, right? And then when we start talking about younger and younger, millennials, 73% of you guys are living paycheck to paycheck. And one of the biggest things that I always say is like, when we hear statistics like that, the average person is like, oh, it will never be me, right? Because most people think as long as you make more money, you can't run out of money, right? The reality is, once again, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And so when we see 70% of lottery winners also ending up in financial issues, I talk to a lot of athletes. I have, a few partnerships with some top universities as well as professional athletes. Talk to the Bears, I talk to the McDonald All-Americans. And the reality is 80% of NFL players within 3 to 5 years after they retire are going to experience some type of financial hardship. Roughly 70% of that being with the NBA within 5 years. And so it's never just how much money did I make? It's actually what you keep. And then the idea of sustaining that lifestyle after you no longer have that steady income, right? And so as we look at where we are as a society, inflation is higher. 60% of Americans carry a credit card balance with interest over 20%, right? We get over $1.3 trillion of credit card debt. And so when I talk about this being an epidemic in society, the biggest thing we want to talk about right now is impulse control. So right now, ask yourself, at the tender age of 20, right? You guys don't even have real, you know, bills and things of that sort, right? You're in college, but ask yourself, how many of you guys have, and by share of hands, let me know, how many of you guys have bought something that you probably didn't need? Just think about that, right? We are in a society now more than ever where it's easy as possible by the click of one button to buy something, right? It's Amazon Prime Day right now, right? How many people are buying things that we don't need? Oh, concert tickets, right? To go see Jay-Z, it costs a mortgage right now, right? To see Beyonce and Taylor Swift and and not to mention the festival, right? Like when we think about the impulse shopping, and they're not making it any easier, right? We got buy now, pay later. Everybody and their auntie get credit cards maxed out, this, that, and the third. But the number one thing I want you guys to understand is impulse shopping. And so when I asked everybody, what do you want to be when you grow older? Now, one person wrote in here, I want to be broke. And so the way that we ensure none of you guys ever go broke is being able to control your spending, right? And so how do we ensure that we don't become a statistic? It's the mindset shift. Then we're going to talk about budgeting, debt management, expense management. The number one thing is investing, right? You cannot save your way to wealth. You got to invest. Something that's not taught to us. You could argue it's on purpose or whatnot, but I could assure you, we got to invest, right? You can't save your way to wealth. You got to allow your money to work harder for you than you work for it. Dollar cost average, and then eventually protecting that as you get older. And so here's your blueprint, right? They brought me here for one reason, to make sure y'all don't go broke. And the first thing first is we have to overcome our past financial trauma. I don't know about you guys, but as a parent now, I find myself saying the same thing to my kids that my parents said to me. My kids right now, 5, 4, and soon to be 3, we drive past those golden arches. What they say, oh my God, Daddy, can we go to McDonald's? First thing I say is, one, do you got McDonald's money? Or two, we got McDonald's at home. But I say this all to say, right, financial habits are formed by the time you reach age 7. And as a result, there we go. I know some people, parents was telling them about this McDonald's at the house, right? And what you got to understand is that financial trauma that a person learns through osmosis is something that they're going to carry with them, right? You inherit bad relationships with money, right? And so when we talk about overcoming your past financial trauma, you have to ask yourself, how did you view money as a kid, right? Was money plentiful? Was it used in a form of scarcity? And the reason I say that is if you operate with money, or if you operate your money out of fear or desperation, quite often you could find yourself not being careless with money. And so the very first thing is understanding how money was for you. And what you realize, if you're a person that grew up, in my age bracket, maybe they shopping at Payless, or eating ramen noodles and that stuff, and as a result you find yourself spending more money to try to look like you got money, as opposed to living within your means, right? The number one reason most people go broke is because they're living above their means. And so when we talk about the blueprint, it's first things first is having a better foundation with your money. A home built on bad foundation, no matter how nice the home is, somebody said they miss Payless. There we go. I didn't know if that was just my generation. A home built on bad foundation will eventually crumble. I don't care how much granite top and how big the house is. If the foundation is bad, the house will ultimately fall apart. And that's what the very first thing about understanding your money. And then next is budgeting. Remember, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And budgeting will help you do that. On a general over, like a kind of a generic idea is having a 50-30-20, where you're saying 50% of your money is going towards your necessities, 30% is going to your wants, and 20% is saving and paying down debt. And so normally when I give speeches like this, I will have a QR code where you guys can literally just download my free budgeting software. But now I have a much new software called Ask Mac, which is effectively your own financial or your AI powered financial advisor. So I'll give you guys that link at the end. But budgeting is the number one thing, right? So mindset shift, budgeting, and then next we got to talk about having an emergency fund. And so when I gave you a statistic that over 50% of Americans can't cover $1,000 expense, that's because they don't have a fully funded emergency fund. This is arguably one of the more important things you have. If you, and obviously you guys were young, but if you remember what COVID was like, we saw a plethora of people in the service industry, travel industry, and just people that effectively had jobs that were a little more at risk of being shut down, literally blowing through their savings in a month, in a few weeks. And as a result, that's why we had to get, those relief loans, things of that sort, PPP loans, etc. Emergency fund is one of those things that as you get older, you're going to realize it's something you need. It'll help you if you ever lose your job, if you have a roof leak, your car, or a medical bill. But realistically, you want to have 3 to 6 months of your necessary expenses, and you want to put that in a high yield account, right? Like, we're going to go over this, and I'm just looking for interest of time because I do want to have a Q&A. But like, this is one of the things that's extremely important. Then after that, right, building and managing your credit, right? It's quite too often my generation, right? When people who grew up in my age range, when they had bad credit, it could not only did they inherit bad financial traumas from their parents, but they also may have had bills in their names by their parents. But I want to look at something, right? If you have a person named Jordan and Sarah, and they have a difference of a 250 credit score, car loan for Jordan is 6.5% APR, where Sarah might pay 16% APR. I want you to look at that difference. And then we look at this difference extrapolated over 5 years. We're talking about Sarah ended up paying more than $20,000 than Jordan. And that's something that really is important, right? We're talking about phone bill difference, apartment rental, credit card loan, APR difference, right? These are things that, having a good credit score is something that, it's imperative. And that's a cheat code to ensuring that ultimately, right? And I say the easiest way to make more money is to spend less. One way to spend less is have a higher credit score. Because as you can see, the card note Sarah pays versus the credit card, minimum balance, minimum payment that Sarah pays is a lot higher. And the rent is a lot higher, right? Your credit score, you'll be amazed that you could go not only to find obviously a credit card or a car, but trying to get a new job, right? Trying to rent an apartment, they can run your credit for that as well. And so the next thing, right, is investing. And I want you guys to understand investing is the eighth wonder of the world, right? My cousin Einstein lets you know that compound interest, where your money is making money for you. Remember, there are people that have bad relationships and think bad relationships with money and experiences, and therefore they're like, oh, I don't want to invest. I need to see my money. Well, the reality is, if you have a person, and I don't know about y'all, I remember my mom or grandmama tell you, just save your money, baby, save your money. Well, I'm here to let you know, if your mama, your daddy told you that, or your grandmama, unfortunately, they were wrong. Don't just save your money. You need to invest your money, because purely by saving your money in a bank account where the average savings rate is less than 0.5%, your money's losing its value due to something called inflation. The rate of inflation, which is the rise in prices of goods over time, is roughly 3%. So at a minimum, you want your money to, at minimum, keep with the pace of inflation. And what I mean by that is, if you ask your parents right now, gas is $7, and when they was younger, gas was less than $1, right? I used to be able to go to the corner store with $1 and get 4 bags of chips. Now I can barely get 1 bag of chips with $1, right? That's what inflation is. Obviously, tuition is inflation. And so at a minimum, you want to invest to outpace inflation. And so when we talk about investing, right, it's not this complicated, right? My background, I worked at Morgan Stanley. I did sales and trading. I enjoy trading. But one of the things I'll tell you is, my cousin right here, Warren Buffett, right? He got the money in the family. I got the better looks. but I'll still swap with him in a heartbeat. But he'll tell you, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die, right? And the craziest part about this is that by periodically investing, I want you to understand that a person that knows nothing about investing will actually do better than the professionals. More than 80% of people that just invest in the S&P 500 do better than the people that are managing billions and trillions of dollars. And so when we talk about the S&P 500, this is a little outdated, but I want you to understand this is everything you know and use. Your app, your iPhone, right? We just talked about Amazon Prime. So when we talk about some of the best companies that you can own, that's what the S&P 500 is. And so when we talk about investing, and I'll show you what this really looks like, you get to be a boss, right? Understanding what investing is. Investing means the smartest people in the world work for you. When I raise my hand, some people say I'm going to be a journalist, I'm going to be a reporter. Some people say a filmmaker, this, that, and the third. Well, step one of being a boss, step one of being an entrepreneur is investing. Because now Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all these people are your employees. Owning a stock in Tesla means Elon Musk works for you. Owning a stock in Facebook means Mark Zuckerberg works for you. And so when you talk about 500 of America's best companies, the average return of the S&P 500 is roughly 10%. And so if we remember when we talk about why you need to invest, your money needs to outpace inflation. Remember, inflation is on average 3% a year, but investing in the S&P 500, the average return is 10% a year. Makes sense, right? And so I want to actually break this down for you a little easier, right? And I probably shouldn't have started with this much money. I just realized I caught that mistake. But nonetheless, say you're 20 years old, and once again, I'm gonna give you guys a link. You guys can do this. You can run this exact scenario in your own in Ask Mac, which you all will get, by the way, is free. But if you're 20 and in 30 years you start with $25,000 and you invest $500 a year, which is $6,000, which once you get older, you'll realize $6,000 is really not a lot. That's how much one vacation costs, right? That's how much, to some of the ladies in here, y'all want one of them designer bags. That's how much a designer bag costs. 10% average return, you'll have 1.6 million in 30 years. Same exact scenario, but in 35 years, you'll have 2.7 million. And then in 40 years, you'll have 4.5 million. Now, mind you, this is if you started with 25,000. I shouldn't have used that number. I should have took a zero off. But once again, you guys can play with that. But I want you to understand, right? The most important thing about investing, and I get this question often, is, how much should I start with, right? And the reality is, don't ask how much you should start with. You should figure out what you could afford to invest every month. You guys are 20, 21, 22, some of y'all recent grads. So you guys are conditioned to just living life right now. But pretty soon, you're going to be conditioned to paying bills, rent, phone bill, credit card bills, car notes, insurance bills, and what have you. The number one bill I want you guys to be accustomed to is your investing bill, paying your future self. And you want to target roughly 15 to 20% of your revenue in investing. And so it's not what you can start with, it's how much you can afford to invest on a monthly basis. So strategies for today: when you start getting your job, do whatever your employer is going to give you for a match. And what I mean by that, if you have an employer sponsored retirement account, if you work, corporate, if your job is matching you up to 5%, max that out. Then next, I love a Roth IRA. That money ultimately will be tax-free, right? You pay taxes on the front end. What you get out is it'll grow tax-free. Open up those normal brokerage accounts. My favorite is E-Trade. They technically are not paying me to say that, although they've paid me. Well, Morgan Stanley, I used to work there, so I got a lot of love for them. Crypto, maybe less than 5 to 10% of your portfolio. Put it in, Bitcoin, Ethereum. And I want to say that's it. And so I talked about Ask Mac. I know for the next 10 minutes, we can do questions. I don't know. I can't remember if somebody's going to be, administering that. But that being said, scan this. This is Ask Mac. And while we wait for it, I will share my screen and I will show you a video of it. Let me bring this to the screen. What bank should we open up a Roth IRA with? Hold on, let me just press play on this. It's a 1-minute video, and then I'll answer all the questions. But this is what Ask Mac is. What in the world?
Millions of employees show up each and every day carrying something no one talks about: financial stress. Money concerns follow them in the boardroom meetings, daily customer interactions, and more. All moments where financial stress prohibits them from reaching their full productivity. Until now. Ask Mac is your 24/7 AI powered financial companion, providing personalized guidance, education, and alerts to help you make smarter financial decisions every day. Most financial tools react to your questions. Ask Mac helps prevent those questions from becoming problems. This isn't just another benefit, it's a relationship. One that meets your employees where they are and walks them towards where they want to be. Whether it's debt, budgeting, savings, investing, or retirement, Ask Mac helps users focus on what matters most right now. Because financial wellness isn't built around information alone. It's built through guidance, through accountability, through care. When your people are financially secure, your company and your people perform better.
All right. So I'm gonna go back to take this off. Go back to the present control my slides. Oh, I'm still here. All right. That being said, let's do it. So, and then the next slide. So make sure you did I do it right? Make sure you scan that ask.maconomics.com. And then lastly, thank you for having me. Make sure you follow me. That's my Instagram. And now let's talk about you know, your Q&A. So Sabrina Felix, what banks should we open up a Roth IRA with? So one, um, like I say, you can have a Roth IRA in your E-Trade, but others are Fidelity and Vanguard. Those are all good. It's not where you open it. It's more importantly what you put in it. And a bare minimum, you want to put in the S&P 500. That's ticker VOO. You can put, a little bit of NASDAQ in there, QQQ, right? So those tickers VOO, QQQ, and then, put in the companies that you know and use, whether that be Apple, Amazon, Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, what have you. What is a good credit score? So credit score, I would say anything over 700 is good. Then excellent is like over 775. The highest credit score you can have is 850. And I was about trying to pull up my credit score, but for some reason it's like 8 something, low eights. But let's go. Can you share insight on good credit score? Where do you see the value of Bitcoin in the future? So Bitcoin is going through a little issue right now, but it has for the past, since its inception, right? Bitcoin over the past, in 9 different occasions, 8 or 9 different occasions, Bitcoin has gone up and went down by more than 50%. And in each time, it has gone on to make new highs. And so where do I see Bitcoin going? It should for sure, I won't say for sure, but I would imagine it gets over $500,000 soon. And then ultimately it'll run to $1 million. Share best steps to move 401k from one job to another. Great question, right? So if you leave your job, one of the best things you could do is put all your money in one place. It's going to allow it to compound better, to be easier for you to keep an eye on it. And so one of the things you have to do is a rollover. And so for me, when I left my job at Morgan Stanley, then I used to work at a hedge fund, I rolled both of them over to a Roth IRA. And so now if you think about what a 401k is, and you guys will probably get there, the reality is you can only invest in what they allow you to invest in, which is, maybe a pre-selected list of 20 mutual funds, which have higher fees. But if you roll your money over to a Roth IRA, you can own individual stocks. You can, own real estate. There's a few other things you could do, not to get too complex, but you could also own ETFs, which have a lower expense ratio than mutual funds. And that's something. How can I build my credit in my senior year so I could be in a good place for post grad? I would recommend getting and I'm just reading the backstage chat. I would recommend getting a secured credit card. What that means is, say it's a $200 secured credit card, you give them $200, and from there you can never have bad credit effective because you've already prepaid it. But now you're just going through the motions of building and establishing some type of credit. I would also, if, right, here's the caveat, the if your parents have a good credit score, have them add you onto their credit card as an authorized user. Reason being, that's the cheat code. Meaning, right, say I've had my credit card for 18 years. If my kids are on my credit card, now they have 18 years of great credit history, but also 18 years of credit history, and then 18 years of me paying the bill on time, etc. For saving, one concern I have is having my money be accessible in the event of an emergency. With this, what percentage of your monthly income should go to emergency savings versus investments? I love that. So you want to look at this as saying, once you have, it's not a and if. It should be once this is completed, then you move on to the next step. And so you want to have 3 to 6 months of your necessary expenses in a high yield account. You have immediate access to a high yield account. It's a bank account, right? The best part about it is giving you 3%. Then after that, you want to have 20% of your money, 15 to 20% of your money going into your investments. But great question. You want to have roughly 3 to 6 months. When it comes to investing, how should we learn? Where should we learn what to invest in? Follow Ross Mack. I talk about it all the time. That QR code that's up there, make sure you follow that. I have a show on Yahoo Finance called Real Money. It's a podcast. You can look it up there. I have a show on Revolt TV called Maconomics. You can look at it there, but consume it, right? Ask yourself, who and what do you follow? If you just following the Shade Room on Instagram and TikTok, and you just following your favorite celebrity gossip, you are what you consume. Try to also follow CNBC, Yahoo Finance, Ross Mack, where we talk about, money 24/7, advice for taxes and how to manage taxes. So you could do taxes are two ways, right? It could be reactive or proactive. And so a reactive is, oh crap, I just got my W-2s. Now let me hire a CPA or go on, H&R Block, right? That's the reactive where you're just paying taxes. Proactive is saying, I want to formulate a tax strategy so I can minimize how many taxes I pay. That is the number one game, right? At the end of the day, the richest people in the world pay no taxes, whereas the working class people, unfortunately, pay the most taxes. And that's when you look at, kind of statistically what's happening. But the way you want to look at, taxes is saying, study the tax code and understand that even as a W-2 employee, if you also have an LLC, if you also have a company, you're going to find a way to truly minimize your the taxes that you pay. Great questions, guys. Thanks so much for having me once again. As you guys getting ready to embark upon the world, right? Have fun. Understand that the world is your oyster, but more importantly, financial literacy is going to be the most important thing that you guys will ever learn, right? That's the most important thing that is not taught to us, right? When you get money, right? This thing right here, it doesn't come with directions. It doesn't come with a how-to manual. You get it and you unfortunately can blow it. But if you guys are prudent and you understand everything that I said, go back and just understand impulse control is going to be the number one thing. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. And that's that. I love you guys. My name is Ross Mack, and wish you guys the best of luck.
Listen, my hand hurts from taking, I'm old school with it, extra. I got to take notes. The amount of what you said relative to what I could keep up with, I'm glad we're recording this. Ross, it is a pleasure to meet you. We see you. We thank you. The way you started this out, giving statistics, showing a community of people who you would assume, and I know it happens when you assume, that not only year over year, they're making millions of dollars in a year, such that at the end, I think you said it's 80% of NFL players experience hardships once It's all said and done. I can't even wrap my brain around the numbers because I don't know that I can do the math like that on my fingers. So that alone is very sobering. For you to talk about, it's not what you keep. It's not what you make. It's about what you keep. This whole impulse control, I won't tell you how old I am, but I'm old enough to know better. To hear you say impulse control versus impulse shopping, because I'm a shopaholic. You talking about those designer bags. You talking to me. However, my mother was great with credit. She was great with her money. And you are 100% right around what you see is what you eventually become. Because
Absolutely.
now I'm on it in a way that my husband is very generous, but even I have to put the kibosh on things with him because I had a mother who did it with my father. So
Mm.
you are right around the habits and the things that we learn. What we see is who we become. I can't even begin to continue to go on. This whole 5 to 10%, everybody needs to get some crypto. I appreciate your honesty around the current state of affairs for crypto, but it doesn't mean that we don't engage in it. It doesn't mean that we don't
Mm.
understand it. And I am already like, whew, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My mom added me to her credit card when I was probably like 13. I,
That's the
I
way.
tell you, I am a recipient of the advice that you just gave. Okay, I will say how old I am, and I'm 50. So I don't need to say much else about my journey
I thought
with
you was a
money.
student when you came on here.
Come again?
I thought you were a student when you came on here. You're not 50.
I love you. I love what you said. Follow Ross Mack. You don't have the answers. You don't understand. I told you in my opening earlier that we are here for you. This is a community of resources, but you have to do your part. I like that you said we need to be proactive about it. So be proactive and go find him on Revolt. Go find him on Yahoo. Go to his website. There's a quiz for you that I took last week. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Another round of applause for the realness and the authenticity of you and Maconomics, which, by the way, I also love to play off of your last name.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Are you kidding? I hope you don't go too far. I mean, not today, but you can't go too far because we like to call upon folks who have come in and made a hit. And I could see from the chat that this is something we all needed to hear. And for these young students, the younger you are, it means you have time to course correct on any potential bad habits before you get to this age. Thank
Mm.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Oh my God. Well, that was phenomenal. I literally took such notes that my hand hurts. That's not a game.